That is none other than Tim Legler, ESPN, with us, thankfully, right here on Willard and Dibs. So, Tim, A, thank you so much for coming on, and B, please tell us that this Game 6 on the road situation, because it's the Warriors, because they're defending champs, because they have future Hall of Famers, is different than other Game 6 road elimination games.
Oh, without question. First of all, thanks for having me on. I appreciate the time. There's no question it's different. It's why when they went down 3-1, I said at the time on the air, this is maybe the only situation that I can recall a team being down 3-1 in the 22 years I've been at ESPN and having to pick these series and analyze these series. Maybe the only time I felt confident, actually, that they could come back from that. Because of who they are, because of the X factor with their ceiling and how good they can be on certain nights and the shot making, they've been in every situation imaginable together, and there's nothing they're going to see that's going to get them rattled. I can't say that about a lot of teams, and we're seeing it now play out in some of these series. Saw it play out last night in Phoenix. We saw it play out in Philadelphia last night, where the Sixers, basically set up their season to advance by getting that game at home, and you had guys play tight because they hadn't been in that situation, and the pressure got to them last night. So the Warriors, the reason I have faith in them in these situations, there's nothing that's going to happen in the course of the game that's going to faze them, and that's a major advantage when you get into these situations.
You also have a Laker team that probably equally won't be phased. LeBron James, more playoff minutes, more playoff games than anyone in the history of the association, and Anthony Davis, a veteran who's a champion. Does it come down to role players playing better at home as the Lakers' best chance to avoid those jitters?
Yeah, I mean, that's a big part of it. Certainly, I mean, a lot of times guys do play better at home, but I can tell you this, it's not the same playing in a game that you feel like you cannot lose it, right? Because that starts to creep into your mind if things are starting to be more difficult than you thought, or you're in for a real fight, or it's a close game, or if it goes off the rails and you're down 10. That weight of that game is different because they know this is their last home game in the series. This is it. And that's exactly what Philadelphia experienced last night. It's a very similar situation. You got a Boston Celtics team that went to the finals last year, went in and they played with more poise. They played with more confidence. The pressure of the home team is different than it is the road team. It's the same thing here. The Lakers are a team now that knows that this is it. They've got to get it done. I'm not saying they couldn't win in Game 7, but they know the odds of that happening aren't great. So the pressure, if the Warriors can be within striking distance, like you're in a one-possession game with 5-6 minutes to go, there's an awful lot of pressure on all of those guys, LeBron, AD, and especially the role players, to make plays to close the deal. And that is just a different weight that you carry in a moment like this when you're at home.
Tim Legler, ESPN, with us on Willard and Dibs. Tim, I love your comparison to last night with Philadelphia. For me, here's maybe the difference. One thing I keep going back to, because I certainly think the Warriors will have their opportunities tonight, but that Philadelphia team does not have a LeBron James. What is the factor in your mind that he plays tonight, since he's done it all, seen it all, and experienced it all?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is one of those games because he understands, there's so many implications here for him and how important this moment is to beat a team like Golden State with Steph Curry on it, potentially, meaning that their path is continuing now to potentially end up in the NBA Finals again, maybe end up in another championship. And if for a guy, that's just constantly trying to add to the resume and try to, if he could possibly get more entrenched in the debate with Michael Jordan as the greatest of all time, because I think that's important to him. He understands the significance of this moment, and that means he's going to have this game in his hands. And I think you're going to see him control pace. I think you're going to see him maybe be in the post a little bit more, play a more physical game to slow it down, and not take as much trust in some of the guys that he has trusted to such an extent to this part in the postseason. Mainly guys like D'Angelo Russell, Austin Reeves, the guys like that LeBron has really deferred to at times and let them go initiate the offense. Very rare for LeBron to be comfortable doing that in the playoffs. if he wasn't playing with a guy like Dwayne Wade, it was difficult for him to give up that kind of control. He's done a lot of that with this team, and it's one of the reasons they've broken through. I think in a game like this, it's going to be really more about LeBron James. Again, you're going to be able to notice that right away. The style that he plays, it's going to look a little bit different tonight, I believe, than what you've seen to this point in the series.
Is the style and maybe even the pace the key for the Warriors then accordingly? Because LeBron does want to control things and slow it down and win the game 100-99. That style, do the Warriors need to get up and down again, kind of like they did in Game 5?
Yeah, it's got to be fast, and I think the key to it all is Draymond Green. And I said it during the game, after the game. I don't understand why he doesn't play like that all the time, because that to me was obviously a premeditated thing where he thought about that, like going into the game, like that afternoon, at the game, before the game. Getting his pregame meal. He's thinking about how he had to play. They're a completely different team when he plays like that. And I'm not talking about having an impact. He has an impact every night. That's not what I mean. I'm talking about making the Lakers pay for opportunities that he gets that are obvious scoring opportunities that sometimes he's completely neglectful in looking at. And it makes them easier to guard, and it puts too much pressure on Curry, Thompson, and Poole. And it's also exhausting if he's not taking advantage of those opportunities, because then they have to go chase the ball down again and continue to run and move when he had space to go make a play. I just thought his mindset was so good. That's the Hall of Fame Draymond Green that you saw the other night. He doesn't have to put up 25, 30 points. He might not even have to get 20, but he has to be somebody that's a threat to take advantage of what's there for him and shoot the ball when he's got an opportunity, because he can contribute in such a way it takes pressure off of those guys, and he's the guy that is mainly responsible for pace. So, yes, a lot of this I think we're going to put on Draymond tonight, challenge him to be the same guy he was the other night from a mentality standpoint. Hey, maybe it doesn't go in tonight, and he shoots 3 for 12. Okay, live with it. You're still taking opportunities that force the Lakers to react to you. That is good for everybody else on the court.
Tim, you're asking the same question that many of us ask throughout the year when we look at players and go, why don't you do that every night? And actually, the number one guy we say that about is Andrew Wiggins. Why? So in your mind, why is it difficult for guys to find consistent aggressiveness? And the second part of that is specific to tonight. How do you think the injury affects Andrew Wiggins' aggressiveness?
Yeah, look, I wish I had a secret for why some guys are like that some nights and other nights they're not. I wish I knew. I wish I could really, bottle that up and everybody could take a sip, because you'd love to see everybody in that same mindset every night. So your guess is as good as mine. And I think for Draymond, I think, he gets a little bit defensive about that topic, because he to him, he's doing, everything every night that it takes to help win, and he's been part of these championship teams. That's all true. But there's more there some nights. And the main thing for me is they're just a better team when he plays that way. So, and I think for Wiggins, just depending on what he's dealing with. I mean, I've dealt with something like that. I know how painful that is. Everybody's different in terms of what you're going to be able to tolerate and what he's going to be able to do. And I think it's something, if he's out there, he's going to have to test that out in the beginning of the game. You're going to know pretty early, I think, with Andrew Wiggins, how he feels and what his ceiling is going to be tonight.
If he's unable to go and really be effective, what do you do about the LeBron problem? Because Draymond's done pretty well on Anthony Davis, but it's been Wiggins on LeBron James. Do you have an elixir for the Warriors if Wiggins is unable to go on LeBron?
Yeah, no, I mean, that's the biggest probably component you're going to miss with Wiggins. It's going to be different, I think, in how you're going to have to play him. And I think you're going to have to probably load up a little bit more, and that's going to create some open opportunities for some of those other guys. And like I said before, the pressure is going to be different. So if you're Steve Kerr, the last thing you want to see is LeBron James have his way, because you kind of know how that's going to go. If he's got smaller guys on him, if he's got driving lanes, if he's not getting enough attention because you might not have the defensive personnel to deal with him like you normally would, then you can't at the end of the game, you lose. You can't go home and be thinking like, LeBron's the guy that just gutted us all night. Make other guys make shots. Make all those role players that I described make shots. So without a Wiggins, who could do a much better job if he does get single coverage against LeBron, you might have to see a little bit more guys stunting or flat out blitzing and then get the ball out of his hands and then see if other guys are good enough to beat you. And if they are, then there's just not much you can do about that, because then they're just a better team in this series.
Tim Legler, ESPN, with us, Willard and Dibs. Hey, Tim, can you give us a sense as fans when we hear, especially in a playoff series, and when it gets late, it's like, well, the home team gets the whistle. In your mind, what does that mean? And what's your experience with it? How does it affect the game?
Yeah, look, I'm a person I've never really bought into all of that. I really try to keep my thoughts out of it, even as a player. Like, you'd hear that kind of topic going around all the time. You're worried about who was reffing and where the game was being played and all of those things. And I just think ultimately it typically comes down to the team. The more aggressive team, I think, gets the benefit of that whistle. And I think officials get caught up in that early in the game. If they see a team being very aggressive defensively, pressuring up on the ball and attacking downhill, and like that's their style of play early in the game, I think referees get caught up in that as well. And they tend to then give you a little bit more leeway because you're setting the tone for how you're going to play. And I think that's very important in this game. This is not a night for passivity defensively. Like you need to be locked in, and you need to make sure that you're the team that's setting the tone, that you're more aggressive, and you're there for a purpose tonight, which is to get this back to a Game 7.
Speaking of officials falling prey to certain things, how big of a deal and how big of an issue is flopping in our league, Tim?
It's a massive problem, and they tried to address it a number of years ago. They actually instituted a rule where guys were going to start getting fined and suspended for flopping, and that just kind of disappeared because I thought that was one of the best things they came up with because it's out of control, and it makes it so much harder to officiate because you think about these three guys are out there, and they've got certain things they're looking at all over the court, but then they can't see everything, and out of their peripheral view, they see a guy reacting like he just got hit with a sledgehammer. And then they turn and look, and the guys fall. And so sometimes you don't get a clear look at it. And when you're an official and you're constantly trying to be fooled, which I think so much of defense in the NBA anymore is every trip trying to trick an official. And as a result, there's a lot of missed calls. And a lot of this stuff needs to be cleaned up. It needs to be addressed because I don't think there's barely a possession that goes by in an NBA game where somebody is not on their backside because they're trying to trick an official, bait an official into getting a call.
All right, Tim, what kind of chance you give them tonight?
I give them a great chance. I picked them to win the series. I'm certainly not going to run from it now. I think that they're capable of having a special night, and I think the key is, like I said at the very beginning, be there. Coming out of that 7-minute timeout in the fourth quarter, be within a possession. And if you are, I think you're going to see some guys not play well under pressure for the Lakers at home because it's just a different feeling, and I think the Warriors' poise and what they've been through collectively will serve them well tonight. I really think they've got a great chance to win this game. They just can't get hit with an onslaught or a gut punch early in the game and try to play from a 15 to 20-point deficit.
Now, is that some bias as a former Warrior, having played under the saintly one, Gary St. Jean, during the dark days here in Golden State? Tim, is there some Warrior love bias emerging here from you?
No, not really. I think for me, if I am biased in any way, it's as an analyst, and I have to continue to do this for another month until the season ends, it's more fun for me to watch that style of basketball. Like, I love watching the Golden State Warriors play when they're at their best. But, look, as I tell so many fans around the country that always think you have a bias in everything you say and do, right? They just insist. I try to not have any of that going on because I can tell you this, win or lose tonight, I will sleep like a baby. And I don't know if the fans of the particular teams will. I can tell you that.
I sure won't, Tim. And I appreciate the 23
you have
games.
A baby, though.
Well, that's true.
I'll sleep good.
Yeah, I'll be tossing and turning.
Oh, man. Tim, Tim, you're the best, man. Thank you.
Appreciate you having me, guys. Take care.
Thanks,
Tim Legler, ESPN.